for the battered but proud people of the Empire State. From the financial and entertainment epicenter of New York City to the sleeping and empty small cities and towns of upstate, which once bustled with manufacturing, mining, and farming. We all know from inspiration, history, and nature, we deserve a return to the success and growth of generations past, a birthright being squandered by corruption in Albany, and the depredations of an insecure, scheming mountebank posing as governor, who loathes both us and himself. As liberty beckoned to enslaved peoples behind the Iron Curtain via American broadcasts after World War II, we now say, believe, rise, and join us. Welcome to Radio Free New York.
Welcome to Radio Free New York. I'm your host for today, Kevin. Andrew Hollister is still out on vacation. Thanks for joining us here on WYSL and for listening to our rebroadcast on WACK and WENY, and of course our Facebook pages, Andrew C. Hollister and Radio Free New York, and any of our podcasts as well. You can always catch us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, any of the podcasting services that you're interested in. Please subscribe and let us know what you think. Now, today I wanted to bring in a guest because I was thinking a lot about the e-bikes bill and the high-speed rail and a few of these other transportation issues. And the person I wanted to bring in is a guy named Arian Horbovetz, and he is the author of the Urban Phoenix blog and frequent commentator on many of these issues. And before I introduce Arian, I want to say, like, the thing that caught my attention with Arian, the reason I first started reading his blog is because he is probably one of the first people I've ever seen say something nice about Utica. And I'm from the Utica, Rome area originally, and a lot of people in that area love to crap on that town. They really do, because it's an area that struggles. It legitimately does. Mm-hmm. And what I appreciate about Arian is that he finds the good stuff going on, the people who are working very hard to make the areas across upstate New York, cities and towns and small villages, working to make them better places. So, Arian, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I want to talk a little bit more about that too, just because we cover a big area with our broadcasting and including these towns that you've covered. So tell us, why'd you start doing that?
It's I wanted to do kind of a photo blog initially. I'm a photographer by trade, and I wanted to do a photo blog initially when I started this 5-6 years ago. I had never, living in Rochester, New York, I had never heard a good thing about Utica. I had only heard crap about Utica, about what a hole it was and everything like that. And, as we move through life, we learn that that's, just taking that on somebody's recommendation or somebody saying that it's probably a better idea to, see it for yourself and make your own determination. So I decided I was going to do that. So I traveled, this is about, 5.5 years ago, I traveled to Utica and, cause I wanted to see if it really was indeed, the place that everyone, the horrible place that everyone had told me about. And what I found is I spent a day there. I took pictures. I faced with Oneida County Tourism before going there. So they pointed me in the right direction, and I, looked on Google Maps and chose a couple places that I wanted to check out too. What I found was a community that was going through the very beginnings of a revitalization effort. I found people that were engaged in their community, that were just very, very excited that finally there was some excitement, there was some fire being lit under their city once again. I saw young people really saying we're going to take our city back. I saw people of all walks of life and all ages really, really engaged in a place and happy to welcome someone from the outside in and show them all the things that they loved about their community. And I'll tell you what, I had one of the best days I've ever had in my life. And they rolled out the red carpet. It was wonderful, and it was genuine. It wasn't a fluff show. These are people that were just, whether I was there or not, they were excited about what was going on there. And I wrote the blog. I never thought it'd get more than 50 views or something like that, and in 2 days it had like 25,000. And it went nuts. And ever since then, I've had a wonderful relationship with that city. I've moved on to other cities like Schenectady and Rome and Binghamton and Troy, and again, places that don't have the best reputation in our larger upstate New York cities, but I've been fortunate enough to be able to tell this story about the very good things happening in our smaller cities and even our smaller communities.
Yeah, and for those who've heard the beginning of this show, like our take on upstate New York can sometimes be a bit pessimistic, like, oh, here are things that are all going badly.
Yes.
And again, I appreciate so much that you are looking in to see what's going well. How are people, like, living in these communities that, again, sometimes they are struggling economically. They've had jobs leave the area, but how do you like rebuild and start to do creative things to, make your town lively?
That's a great question. It starts with, I think it really starts with saying enough. Enough with the negativity. Look, we should all be skeptical about where money is spent in projects and things like that. I'm not saying that we should just jump at everything that's new and shiny, right? But it really starts with saying, for a long time, like you said, it's very easy to get very pessimistic about our upstate New York cities and our upstate New York communities. When I say cities and when I talk about urban, I'm not necessarily talking about skyscrapers. I'm talking about,
like what do you mean by that? Like, it's not just Utica.
Yeah. Well, a city is, 10,000 people or something like that. But even smaller than that, some of my favorite places around here in Rochester, I'm talking about denser communities of people, building community again in our small towns, in our small cities, in our big cities. It's obviously done differently a little bit in small towns, and that's fine. But what it really takes, no matter where you live, is it can start with one person and then lead to another person, another person that are committed to just saying, let's stop getting negative. Let's start talking about the things we can do to make our communities better. And the conversation goes from there.
Well, what things are they doing to make the communities better?
What you're seeing, it's really interesting. One person will come in and open a coffee shop where there was none before. And a lot of times it's in an area of town maybe that was left for dead. And that coffee shop, if marketed the right way, can activate, an area. A brewery goes in. Rome, New York is a phenomenal example. You're wearing a Copper City brewing hat. One of my favorite places in upstate New York. I have some really good friends there. And that's really kind of revitalize that community. I know there's not a lot of I know Rome and Utica are kind of, sometimes, Rome, Utica, they not exactly the friendliest of partners always, but I know a lot of Uticans that go out to Rome now because Copper City Brewing is there and they love that.
Yeah, it's a great place.
And so, it takes these little islands, these injections of life into areas to kind of facilitate growth and excitement. And what you see is, if it's done the right way, kind of really, and it really helps if it's a grassroots down, kind of pull yourself up by your bootstraps effort. It really kind of inspires kind of the local conversation, and you start to see investment around that initial coffee shop, that initial brewery, that initial, I think of the Taylor and the Cook in Utica, that kind of stretch there, and Utica Coffee there. That's really excited a lot of people and really kind of bled out into the rest of Genesee Street in the Utica area, and you're seeing that growth happen very organically. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
So it's just a business owner decides to take the initiative. And do it, and there's this kind of a organic process.
It's all about small business, and it's all about people wanting to support that. And what I find is, in these smaller communities in places like Utica and Rome, and also in places like Schenectady and Troy, and I've gone to Geneva, I visited there, Hudson. Whatever.
I was going to say we need to give some Finger Lakes in Western New York.
Yeah.
This is where most of our
exactly. No, it's, I've been kind of all over, but what you see is in these smaller communities, I think it's easier to get behind that one thing that's opening. If you're in a bigger city and a restaurant opens, there's maybe a restaurant opening every week or something like that. In a smaller community, it's easier to see when one thing happens, when one kind of exciting thing happens. What I find is a lot of people, especially young people, are looking for something to jump in and support, and they're supporting these small businesses, these locally owned businesses that open, and it's a really, really neat thing to see that level of support when that happens in a smaller community.
That's awesome. Again, I appreciate the optimism that you bring to this, and the optimism that you see happening in upstate New York. That is noise there, and we're about to head into a break, but when we come back, we'll talk about some of the other stuff that
business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Hi, Bob Savage here for the WYSL station. So times are tight, and you've got to watch every penny. How to get maximum advertising impact without shelling out maximum bucks? Well, there's print media. Of course, there's a reason why it's called the incredible shrinking daily paper. Then there are those penny savers and shoppers, 98% of which hit the recycling bin without ever being opened. And are you really looking for customers who are shopping for used tires and playpens? You could try cable TV, 500 channels, 12 viewers per channel. Or how about hiring some guy in a day-glow orange wig to dance holding up your sign down at the corner? If you want real advertising impact with a quality message for savvy consumers who actually have money to spend, WYSL has a giant 20,000-watt signal and 2 FM channels at 92.1 and 95.5, covering 1.4 million people all over Rochester and the region, literally all the way to Pennsylvania. Get results, save time and money. Call us, get on board, and start growing for 2020. 346-3000 or WYSL1040.com.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to Simple Tech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that Simple Tech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at Simple Tech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at Simple Tech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
You're listening to Radio Free New York.
All right, welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm Kevin Wilson with Arian Horbovetz today, author of the Urban Phoenix blog. And so make sure you check. Where can people find you?
They can go to the urbanphoenix.com. From there, you can read the blog. You can. There's a link to the podcast, which is really starting to pick up momentum. Also, the YouTube page. I'm trying to do more with video, trying to give people a lot of different mediums to connect with the content that we have.
Yeah. We know how that goes.
Yeah, exactly. We all have to do it, right?
All right, so we're talking a bit about upstate New York in the previous segment, but now I want to shift topics a little bit to talk about e-bikes. And I've gone on several rants. I was so frustrated to see Governor Cuomo veto the e-bike bill, in part because I'm like, man, just let people ride the bikes. They're adults. Just go out and be able to do it, take the risk, that's fine. There's some rumors that it was for political reasons they didn't do it, and he said it was for safety reasons because of the helmet. And now it seems like they might be moving forward with like an e-bike and e-scooter bill. So
supposedly tomorrow he's going to come out, Cuomo's going to come out and announce that the bill is going through and is passing, giving municipalities, I believe, that was kind of originally the thought, right, that every...
So it's not even making it legal, it's giving municipalities the ability to be able to
absolutely
regulate it if they want to.
You got it. And, it's definitely a hot topic. It's one that not everybody understands. As somebody who, and you know this, Kevin, you bike all the time, for transportation and things like that.
Yeah.
I bike year round to work, and I
can't do that one second. I'm a 3-season biker. I'm a wimp. I'm not going to do it in the winter.
That's not wimpy. You know what? It's a lot of times it's just unsafe. It's just unsafe to ride a bike, on the road in the winter. It's I face that myself occasionally, and I have no problem with choosing another form of transportation if that's the case. But I actually own an electric bike, and the funny thing about this is, I know dozens and dozens of people personally that own electric bikes. They've never had an issue with a cop pulling over. The only issue you're ever going to have if you're riding an electric bike right now, before this bill passes, is if you get in a crash. If you crash and something's happened, then you're going to get some sort of...
So if you hit something, or worse, a car hits you, and then that person was riding an illegal bike?
Exactly. No, like anything else... for the most part, I have an electric bike, I have an electric scooter, I have an electric skateboard. The electric skateboard, to be perfectly honest, is the greatest way to travel. It sounds really, really nerdy, but to be honest,
terrifying.
It's an amazing. It's a really high quality one. It's a boosted board, so it's like the top of the line. But I won't get too much into it. My point is, it is a lot of fun, and it's a great way to commute, and it's a great way to travel too, because I can travel on the train. I can go around. I can pop on the bus or whatever and take my, have that last mile transportation piece with me. So, I ride all this illegal electric stuff, and to be perfectly honest, nobody's ever given me a hard time because I don't ride it like a jerk.
Yeah. Well, and see, that's what I always get whenever I mention that, like, oh yeah, I ride my bike to work, or when I'm going to hang out with friends. I can't ride it now because I work like 30-minute drive from my house. Right. But when I used to, people are, oh, well, all the bikers, they're jerks. They run through red lights, and they just disregard the rules of the road. So what do you think about that?
Well, because
I'm sure you've heard it before.
I understand. Of course, we understand that absolutely. And look, there are a lot of cyclists that I kind of look upon and go, really, dude, you gotta do that. You gotta give us all a bad name and pull that crap. The thing that I'll always remind drivers, and you don't understand this unless you get out of a car and actually bike down the street, is drivers break the law far more often than we do.
Yeah.
Every time you're going over the speed limit, remember, you are breaking the law. Every time you're rolling through a stop sign or rolling into a crosswalk, which, again, I see at every single intersection from almost half of the cars, I would say. This is anecdotal, but, that's breaking the law. You're breaking the law all the time driving. Here's the difference between breaking the law when you're a cyclist, which I don't condone, mind you. I'm making this comparison. The difference, if I break the law on my bike, I am only jeopardizing my life. If you, or if I'm driving a car, I shall say, if I'm driving a car and I break the law, I am not just jeopardizing my life, I am potentially jeopardizing the life of somebody else. I'm driving a 2,500 to 3,000 to 4,000 to 5,000 pound vehicle and breaking the law doing it. If I saw somebody today run a red light that was red for 3 seconds before he went through.
Yeah.
Again, driving a 4,000 pound pickup truck. Don't tell me about cyclists when that driver is out there. Don't tell me about cyclists. 40,000 people are killed every year by cars. That's as much as people die from breast cancer. It's the number one killer of children, car crashes. So when we say think of the children, I always kind of laugh at that. Say, oh, but you just pile your kids in the backseat of the car every day.
Yeah.
Cars are dangerous. They are. And cars aren't going away, and I'm not saying cars should go away. I'm not going to take that stance.
You're not going to take that radical stance.
We've already built our America around the automobile. I get it. That's the way it is. And that's fine. And I'm sure most of the people listening here are very, very safe drivers. My point is, if you're going to make the argument that cyclists are dangerous, you have to look at the fact that drivers are more dangerous because inherently, if you do break the law, even a fraction of, even a few miles an hour, that you wield a far more destructive piece of machinery when you're driving a car.
I get nervous all the time. I'm walking my dog down the road, and someone just kind of makes a right turn on red too quickly, doesn't come to a complete stop, and I'm crossing the crosswalk at the time. They almost hit me and my dog. And stuff like that. That small bit of carelessness could actually kill me or my dog.
How many in our community alone, here in greater Rochester area, how many pedestrian deaths have we seen in the last 6 months with cars driving up on a sidewalk? So this whole wear reflective clothing, whatever, cars crashing into houses, and I always laugh because I say if this was a scooter. If this was an electric scooter, if this was an electric bike, if this was a bike, if this was a cyclist, they would talk about banning these the first time. But since it's a car driving up and killing 2 small children on a sidewalk, we just kind of give the guy a ticket and say it's a tragic thing, thoughts and prayers.
Or worse, like, why weren't they wearing reflective clothing?
Exactly.
Why are they walking on a dark sidewalk? The car drove up onto a sidewalk. Like, why are we having this conversation?
Exactly. And I'm not against cars. I'm against the hypocrisy of the conversation when we talk about cyclists being dangerous, when the real danger on our roads is the automobile that most of us drive every single day. That is a dangerous machine, and we wield it often like it is very casually.
Yeah, and again, cars serve great purpose. They get us to and fro.
They're amazing inventions.
The studio for the station is out in Avon. You own one now.
I own one. Yes,
I know. You went without one for quite a while.
I did. Yeah, but I'm a wedding photographer. I mean, I have not driven a car in 4 or 5 months, but I ride around the lot just to make sure that everything gets circulated. But I don't use it that often. But in the summer, I run a business. I run a photography business, and a lot of those weddings are remote. I have got to get out there. So
kind of related to that, you live not in the city but close to the city, so you can kind of get around in some ways. But for someone who's maybe living out in a rural part of Livingston County, listen to this conversation, they're going to think, well, how the heck is an electric bike legalization bill relevant to me? Why would someone in Livingston County care about that type of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not talking about just because electric bikes are, legal or will be legal, for example, I always say this, I would never have the expectation of somebody, and I never preach this, ditch your car altogether. What I say is, something like a bike, a nice bike, an electric bike, scooter, whatever, wherever you live, depending on where you live, it can give you other options. So if you've got a store that's, if you're living in a kind of let's say a more rural area or a more sparse area, let's say you have an electric bike, let's say you decide to buy one. How nice would it be to, kind of ride into town, maybe 5 miles or something like that, not be sweaty when you get there, load some groceries into a basket and go. Maybe you ride with your partner. Maybe you just want to take a nice summer ride, into town, like I said, or just along a road with some wide shoulders. I think an e-bike is actually better for our smaller and more rural communities than an actual bike. I think it just gives folks more options with what they can do. You talk about choices, right? An e-bike gives you that other choice. You can use it for exercise, or you can just really crank up that motor and glide and just cruise. Yeah, exactly.
No, I did some biking when I was out in Europe over the summer, and we were some people who were a bit older, and having the e-bikes for them, seemed like it could be a good option. If you if you kind of have lost your capacity to be able to. Now I'll tell you, the older folks I went with, the one guy, his e-bike died like 20 minutes in, and he still kicked our butt. We're on the regular bikes, and he's still cruising past.
That's awesome.
But for some people, it's like they're not able to bike in the same way they were before, and this enables them to enjoy a fun outdoor activity with.
William Shatner is in his, I believe, mid-80s, and he still does the Pedigo bikes, I think they're called, and he owns his own electric bike, and he's in his mid-80s, and he's cruising down the way. It's a great mobility option for people with, who, like you said, maybe their bodies are going on them a little bit and stuff like that. I'll say this with these electric vehicles, whether it's a scooter or an electric bike, you don't judge it until you ride it, because you know what? It's a lot of fun, and I've had so many people say, you know what, I was skeptical, and then I got on one. Is like, I need to get one. I don't want to rent one anymore. I want to buy one. It's that much of a kind of a changing. Yeah, exactly.
I want one. I was like, could I ride my bike to work if I had an electric bike? Maybe.
I have a 4-mile commute, and I can get there in 13 minutes.
Oh, see, that's not bad. Mine's Victor from the city of Rochester. So
it's a little hike.
Maybe. But if I'm on an electric bike, maybe it's not so bad.
But I can tell you the route because I went down to Victor just recently and made that trip, and I did it I had a lot of fun doing it.
All right. Well, we'll be back in just a few minutes. Again, I'm Kevin Wilson talking here with Arian Horbovetz, and we're talking e-bikes, and we're going to talk about some high-speed rail next. So thanks again for joining us here on Radio Free New York.
Twice the power. WYSL. More powerful FM 92.1, FM 95.5 West, and 1040 AM WYSL Avon Rochester.
Here's the latest forecast from the News 10 NBC Weather Center. Tonight, partly to mostly cloudy skies. A couple of flurries, temps in the teens and 20s. Wednesday, I think we'll see a little bit more sun. Clouds give way to a bit of sunshine. Temperatures up a bit into the mid and upper 30s. Thursday, mostly cloudy near 40. Friday, could see some snow or snow-rain mix coming in for the weekend. I'm Rich Cornelia on WYSL.
For 58 years, it's been the late winter break, the early sign of spring that brings a smile to the face of every member of the family. Folks all over the Northeast wouldn't miss it. A visit to Cartwright's Maple Tree Inn, nestled in the forest outside Angelica, New York. If you haven't discovered this special destination, you don't know what you're missing. The Maple Tree Inn specializes in one thing only: buckwheat pancakes served family style, topped with the Cartwright family's signature maple syrup from thousands of taps in the Maple Grove right outside the restaurant. Eggs as you like them, maple milkshakes, and the Cartwright's own seasoned sausage are great accompaniments. The rustic setting and the scenic trip to the Maple Tree Inn are all part of the fun. Find out why families regularly make the trek from Rochester, Buffalo, all over the southern tier, even Canada, Germany, and Japan, just to experience the special treat. Cartwright's Maple Tree Inn, only open February 11th to April 11th. 585-567-8181. Get more information and driving directions at cartwrightsmapletreeinn.com.
This is Dom Genova, owner of Genesee Valley Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram in Avon, your no-nonsense car dealer. Factory figures show that Genesee Valley was the number 2 Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram dealer in Rochester in new vehicle sales last month. Number 2. Think of all those guys promising to give you thousands more than your trade is worth, sending you fake keys in the mail, all the hype and the yelling. And we were number 2 in sales in Rochester in our quiet, no-nonsense way. You know why I'm laughing? Genesee Valley Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram is not even in Rochester. We're in Avon. Educated consumers simply took the short trip down 390 to exit 10 and got a money-saving, no-nonsense deal from a non-commissioned salesperson and all the factory rebates they deserve. Like the Start Something New rebates we have this month. Take the short trip for a big difference.
Genesee Valley.
Exit 10, Route 390 in Avon.
GeneseeValley.com.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Trends are moving local, from sourcing local farms to shopping small businesses. So why are you still with that big, cold, nationwide bank? St. Pius Federal Credit Union is inviting you back home. And coming home shouldn't mean sacrificing the services you want. St. Pius Credit Union offers state-of-the-art online banking, a mobile app, low fees, competitive rates, with access to dozens of fee-free ATMs. Let us show you how easy coming home can be at spxfcu.org. St. Pius Federal Credit Union.
It's time to smile again. Our patients at Liberty Dental are raving about their smiles and wish they had done this earlier. With our dental implants, you can walk out of the office with a new shiny smile that you've always wanted. Schedule your free consultation at Liberty Dental and see how easy and affordable it is to smile again. Call 434-2090 and schedule your free consultation today. Liberty Dental, West Ridge Road, Greece, next to Ridgemont Wegmans. Liberty Dental. Get your smile today. 434-2090.
Emani, time for school, baby. Emani, time for school. Emani, it's time.
A different couch, a different floor, the backseat of a car. Over 2,000 Rochester school-age children are homeless, but now there is hope. The Open Door Mission Cold Water House for moms and their children. OpenDoorMission.com/doves.
Radio Free New York.
Hey, welcome back. You're listening to Radio Free New York. So we're here with Arian Horbovetz, author of the Urban Phoenix blog, and we were talking e-bikes last segment, and now I think we're going to shift topics again to high-speed rail.
Dun, dun, dun.
Yeah, so, I mean, we had talked about high-speed rail, I don't know, a couple weeks back now on this show, and mostly a negative way, because when we think of high-speed rail, to be honest, we think of government boondoggles, right? It's like, all right, this is something that's going to be expensive. Mm-hmm. We look at the projects going on out in California, and a lot of those aren't quite complete. They're running over budget. And New York State is kind of infamous for both light rail and commuter rail going way more than they need on expenses. And then plus, you know, we have to ask, like, is there enough demand for it? And I'd kind of said, like, well, I would like high-speed rail in theory. Mm-hmm. Like, I think it would be kind of cool to be able to take a train down to New York City and have it be affordable and relatively quick. I could take the train now. It takes a bit longer than I would like, and sometimes it ends up being more expensive than a flight, and it takes me 8 hours to do it. And so let's talk. I threw a lot at you there, but let's. What do you think of the high-speed rail situation? What's the current situation now? What do we do?
Yeah,
tell us what to do.
I can't do that. I mean, I'm skeptical myself. Listen, I think when everyone starts talking about $5 billion to $15 billion, which is, you know, depending on what we're looking at as far as this project, or I guess the last assessment in 2014, you know, was talking kind of about that range. Whenever we look at that in a state that's obviously, you know, $6 billion in debt as it is, yeah, we should all be skeptical, right? We should all approach this with a level of skepticism. But it really was an eyebrow raise, right, for I think the entire state that, oh, this is popping up again. This is a complete surprise.
And it pops up every few years. We've been talking about this since at least the 90s, probably sooner. But
I wanted, you know, the first thing I want to do, and I'm literally about to publish something about this tomorrow on my blog. I want to dispel some myths about high-speed rail. Okay, and high-speed rail, I think people think toy. I think that comes up in most people's minds, like it's an expensive toy that you know, people are gonna just use to go to New York City. I'm a very frequent Amtrak rider. Something you should know about Amtrak, I'm going to say right off the bat, is the new CEO, a man named Richard Anderson. He comes from Delta Airlines. He got Delta back on track when they were kind of just about close to being done. He has slashed all the kind of amenities in Amtrak. He's slashed a lot of cost and broken it down to basically the core of what makes Amtrak, you know, a nice option for people. Amtrak is poised to make a profit for the first time in its existence this year. Wow. They came very close last year. Most people don't realize that. So Amtrak is actually doing quite well finally.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't looked at it in a while, but I kind of know Amtrak for being not profitable at all and kind of propped up by the government.
Right. And the myth, the number one myth that I want to dispel here is every mode of transportation is government subsidized. Okay, you drive on roads.
So you're gonna have to explain that one.
Yeah, every single. I mean, it costs $1.25 million in taxpayer money to repave. Not build, repave the average 4-lane road. Count, that. Think of how many 4-lane roads there are in the state. I'm not going to even get into how much it costs to build or repair a bridge. Well,
in New York, we don't.
We certainly don't. No, and the reason is we can't pay for it because we built too much of it. We built too many roads. This is something we urbanists talk about a lot that I think frustrates people a lot, but I'm going to leave that conversation for another day. I'm going to say, for example, the number one most subsidized, I think, company in the United States is Boeing. So again, that's cost that doesn't, filter down into your airline ticket when you fly. Every form of transportation, be it personal, private or public, is subsidized. So Amtrak is far from the only government subsidized or government controlled or on some level corporation. But Amtrak is in a better place right now, and it is good to see. The number one problem that Amtrak faces, especially here in upstate New York, is the fact that Amtrak doesn't actually own its own track. It rents track basically on major freight carriers across the country: CSX, Norfolk Southern, BNSF, and more. So the problem is Amtrak trains right now, their max speed in most of these areas is 79 miles an hour. But the problem is they run just like cars do into freight traffic. These freight trains are sometimes a mile long. Getting around them, and they're slower typically, or backing into a yard or switching track, there's only 2 tracks. So moving around that, it causes tremendous delays. So the fact is, if Amtrak just had dedicated track from, let's say, Buffalo to New York, it would allow people to travel more reliably. And I can say this as a regular Amtrak rider, that's the number one issue. If you ask any regular rider, it's not speed, it's reliability based on the time that you're going to arrive at your destination.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, back when I used to live in the Utica, Rome area, my wife would take the train from Rochester to Rome to come visit me while we're still in college.
Sure.
And we never knew, it would say, okay, train's arriving at 8 a.m. But we knew that 8 a.m. might mean 8 a.m. or it might mean 1:30.
Yeah,
it's like a huge window.
It's that bad.
It's just all right, well, I guess the freight traffic is more than they expected today. So, right. Okay, I guess it's going to be another half an hour. Oh, it's another half an hour. It's another half an hour.
I'll say this. There's no more, as far as mass transit, there's no more comfortable way to travel than Amtrak. That is indisputable. The leg room that you have, the space that you have, the ability to walk up and, you can walk back to the cafe car, get yourself some food. It is comfortable as heck. It also lends itself to be a great form of transportation for business. So down the Northeast corridor between Boston and Washington, D.C., the only place, by the way, where Amtrak makes money, and the only place, interestingly enough, that also owns its own track, and the only place that it has something resembling high-speed rail, is, that corridor is very profitable because it is a huge business corridor, and Amtrak works very well there. The problem is, because there are these gigantic delays, I'm not talking minutes, I'm talking hours in many of these delays, and I'm talking on-time rates that on some of these trains that are 40%. So you can't possibly be a business traveler in New York State. You can't build a business community. You can't say that this is a place for business, with access to, multimodal transportation when you have these types of delays. High-speed rail gives us the opportunity to start looking at that as a possibility for upstate.
All right, so I got to push back on that a little bit, though, because, let's say Amtrak does get everything it wants. It gets a dedicated line, dedicated track that they're able to travel. We get high-speed rail. Is there enough of a market in upstate New York, Buffalo, Rochester, Syracuse, Utica, Albany, down to New York? Is there enough of a market to be able for Amtrak to be profitable in this region, and for taxpayers to be able to recoup some of that, or to feel like it was at least a good investment, right?
Sure. I think there has to be we have to look at this if they're going to do a study on this. And the person I was just recently on Evan Dawson's show recently here in Rochester said this. If we're going to look at this, we have to look at this. We have to study the economic impact and the potential economic impact as well as the engineering piece, because we're going to look at the engineering piece and find out how much this costs. We have to look at the potential for economic impact. And as far as economics, I will say this. We have to start looking at the amount of money that is pouring out of New York City right now and is looking for a kind of corridor to go along. And, I can go on and on about the communities that I've seen closer to New York where money is just pouring out because people are getting priced out of New York and they're looking to create the kind of New York feel in a new town or a new situation.
Shift upwards.
It can.
It probably scares the crap out of most of my listeners, but, that's...
Well, what? I got to tell you, if we're talking about building an economy, it's got to come from somewhere.
Yeah, right.
It's not. It's going to be very difficult to organically create this economic fire with what we have here in upstate. So if we can tap into a little bit of that, and some of these communities are right now, and I can go into that at the other side of the break. That's something that we can look at.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that more after the break. Thanks again for joining us here on Radio Free New York. We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Aircraft Environmental Systems proudly supports Radio Free New York. Rochester-based leaders in climate simulation chambers for America's R&D laboratories. We're experts in troubleshooting, calibrations, custom designs, and consulting for more than 40 years. Industry pioneers, we created the first ever fleet of temperature, humidity, and altitude test chambers available to rent coast to coast. Trained and trusted by environmental chamber manufacturers, we are ACES. Find us at acesinc.com.
You're listening to Radio Free New York.
Okay, welcome back to Radio Free New York. I'm Kevin Wilson, and again for Andrew Hollister, and we are here with Arian Horbovetz, author of the Urban Phoenix blog. We were talking about some high-speed rail earlier, kind of the potential for development. Again, I'm still a little bit skeptical that high-speed rail would be able to provide a good enough alternative to, say traveling on the thruway, that people would start to use it and be more comfortable traveling at I could just get in my car, not have to pay anything extra other than what I pay for my car, and then drive the Utica, right? Mm-hmm. Which I do frequently, several times a year to go visit my parents. So why should I get in a train, travel the Utica, and then try to figure out a way to get to my parents' house from there, from the Utica train station? It's something that you have some experience with, I understand.
Absolutely.
But do you think there's a market both for me as kind of a vacation traveler who might consider this thing? I do enjoy train travel, and then for a business traveler, do you think that there's ever a possibility that it's going to be good enough compared to the thruway that it's something that people would want to use?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that again, I'm going to reference. With a caveat here, I'm going to reference the Northeast Corridor, where Amtrak owns its own track, where it does go 125 miles an hour over certain sections between Boston and Washington, D.C. Now, I get it. The GDP of that area, rivals most of the rest of the countries in the world. And it's an incredibly dense population, and it is difficult to drive. So obviously, the train becomes the better option, in those situations. Here's my pitch for the train. And again, I think we have to be very we have to be very careful about this. I'm not saying let's go all in on high-speed rail. There's a lot we have to look at before that. But here's what I would say about high-speed rail. Like you said, one thing we have to think of is that we have a generation younger than you and I that is showing more and more that they don't want to drive. They want to be driven. They want to ride. Why is that?
Because they want to play on their phones?
They want to play on their phones.
Okay, boomer.
No, but
kids these days no, I know you're. But it's true.
In all seriousness, but that's the thing. I've written a lot recently about the fact that I think that this shift of why rideshare and why all these things have become popular, and the car, is the age at which people may attain a driver's license is becoming older and older. It's not that kids are getting lazy. It's not that it's that the phone is becoming, the car was always that source of freedom, right? For Americans. Right. You get that car, you get that license, you can go anywhere, you can do anything. I truly believe, and I'm starting to do some studies myself that kind of showcase this, that is going away. The sign of freedom, American freedom, when you're young, is when you can connect digitally, when you can be on that phone anytime, connecting with people. If you're a little bit older, doing business, which I do all the time on my phone. I do most of my business on my phone. I do most of my blogging on my phone. When I'm driving, when I'm white knuckling it down the thruway, I can't be productive. I can't. I get a lot of work done in the train. There's times where I've ridden the train just so I can comfortably work.
Yeah, no,
and I think that's something we have to think about. Is what we're not working towards here are young people and business travelers. We're thinking that people are going to want to travel the same way that we did, or that our parents did, or grandparents did. Right? That's not the case. If we can offer another option for young people, guess what? We get to retain those young people, because what we see is young people are moving to areas where transit-oriented business development is occurring and is happening. If you want to, I would say this: if you want to retain young people in our communities, build around transit, because that's what young people are showing more and more that they want.
So, I'll tell you a story, and then I'm gonna dump some cold water on that a little bit, and we'll see how you respond. But so when I interned in Washington D.C., I really didn't mind a train ride. It took much longer to take the train into D.C. from where I was living at the time than it would to just drive in.
Sure,
but I didn't mind the train ride. It was like a 5-minute drive to the train station. I got on the metro down there, took the train in, took about 50 minutes.
Right,
didn't mind it much though, because I could just read the newspaper, so I could be caught up on whatever someone's going to be yelling at me about for that day, because as an intern you answer the phones, and that's what people do. And then I also was able to read books, and so I really didn't mind it. I kind of enjoyed that, and had it been a couple years later, I would have been on my phone doing the same thing.
Sure.
And I enjoyed that. I don't like taking really long drives where, like you, I like to kind of be productive. That being said, in maybe 5-10 years, we're going to have driverless cars that are going to be able to do something similar, right? You already have Teslas out there that people aren't supposed to take their hands off the wheel, but they do. So why would I want to take a train when I might have this option to take a driverless vehicle to do the same thing, but I'd get directly to my destination and still be able to play on my phone or read or do whatever.
I think that's a really interesting take, and I think here's the thing that's really interesting about this: we don't know what transportation is going to look like in 10 years. We don't know. I think driverless technology is way further behind than we think it is. I think to figure out all the variables that you have to deal with on the road is going to be extremely difficult. And you know what? There's still going to be a gajillion cars on the road. So you're still going to be stuck in traffic. You're still going to be doing all those things. I think, I get what you're saying, and there are applications for driverless cars, most definitely. But I think having a dedicated rail network, seriously, I don't think that's the benefits of that are going away. I just want to hit a couple things on rail and kind of what it's done for communities. Hudson, New York is just south of Albany. It is a population of 6,200 people. They have, I think, 60% more ridership than Rochester does, a city of 200,000. If Rochester had the same ridership per capita as Hudson, New York, it would have 7 million riders a year. That's huge. That's a lot. But the reason is it's a very direct, fast trip between New York City and Hudson, and it's a beautiful little town. It's not like a bunch of people went from New York City and built a bunch of skyscrapers. They were looking for something different. They were looking for a different look and feel that wasn't so chaotic like New York City. Look, New York City people are normal people. Yes, they live in an incredibly crazy environment. Yes, it's insane. Yeah, definitely. For especially like you said, I think probably most of your audience, right? They're people too. They want access to nature. They want, maybe they want to build, a nice business, a small business in a small town and get away from the insanity. But they have the money to do it. They have the resources to do it. So, a town like Hudson has turned into this incredible, place where people can travel between New York and Hudson, or anywhere in Hudson and enjoy a wonderful overnight in this fantastic town. Troy, New York has been bolstered by rail travel and by a gentleman named Vic Christopher, who is a Brooklyn transplant. He was priced out of Brooklyn and has done incredible things to lead the local small business economy there. He's actually rallied the troops in Troy and invested himself in that community, and it's a better place because of it. Rail has helped both of those things. And remember, the train always goes to the center of town. It goes downtown where the airport is outside of town. And there's also Uber and Lyft to get you where you need to go from there. It's never been more practical, actually, to ride the train for public transportation.
Yeah, no, I mean, I suppose that's fair, right? If you're commuting between towns, if I'm going out to Utica, I'm going to get... Utica's a weird one. I don't feel like there's as much going on around the train station as there should be. But
there will be. Bag Square Brewing is going in there. Watch everything explode after that.
Check that out. I got another one on my list.
There you go.
I always thought like,
I'm taking a tour in a couple weeks.
Oh, great.
Bring you with me.
Man, maybe. But yeah, I mean, that's a fair point. I mean, I'm really curious to see, okay, if driverless cars do become a thing, though, right? Like, so maybe it doesn't happen the way we think it does. Maybe people are less incentivized to own a vehicle, right? They're like, all right, maybe I don't need to own this, but if you have other transportation options available to you, we just Uber the driverless car, and that's how it works out. I mean, because I'm trying to hit a lot of subjects at once in the last 2 minutes of our show, but that's something I always think about. We subsidize roads a lot. We really do. And as a libertarian, I think frequently about, how much money goes in the roads. We don't quite pay for it with the gas tax.
We don't come close.
Yeah, not even close. We have a lot of liabilities in that regard, which is why you see crumbling roads and bridges all the time, just because it's very difficult to maintain that infrastructure once it's already built. So if we're starting to think about, maybe we can't maintain this, maybe we want to cut back on government spending, and this is an area to do it, even though people always want to spend more on infrastructure. That's the thing that people are upset about. We're not repairing our roads and bridges. But maybe there are all these other alternatives, right? Like, as we start to see e-bikes, as we start to see rail, as we start to see better, local mass transit networks, right? And buses and things like that. Could that alleviate some of the pressure on that? And, even in quasi-rural communities, too. How do you get around it in your village, right? Is it safe to be able to bike around there? So, I grew up in an area where it was a very small town. My graduating class in high school was 68 people, but it's a village, and I'd be able to get around on bike in that area, right? And I want to be able to do so safely and share that space with cars and pedestrians and other things. And if you're able to have a transportation network that can get you from town to town like a train, there's no longer a train in Oriskany, New York. It just passes it by. But if you're able to do that, then maybe that provides a lot of options where you don't need a car.
Absolutely.
All right, we got only a few seconds left.
I'm going to say this, and you hit on it just the right way. it's all about providing more choices. Not everyone wants to own a car. Not everyone wants to own a driverless car. I don't care about cars. Most of the listeners probably do and probably need one. Yeah. We've built our America around that. But we're trying to create an America, once again, where we actually have more transportation choices, and you don't have to just make the decision to drive a car everywhere you go.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today, Arian. We really appreciate it. And where can they find you real quick?
Thank you for having me. You can find me at theurbanphoenix.com.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today, Arian. And thank you, everyone, for listening today on Radio Free New York. We'll be back tomorrow. Take care.